Ladies and gentlemen, it's my very pleasant assignment to welcome you to this, the 14th George and Esther Williams Lectureship. By an interesting coincidence, this lecture this morning convenes in exactly the same venue where the first one convened 14 years ago. Were I in a church setting, I would be inclined to ask all who were here in that first meeting, put up your hands. But that's for the church setting. But I can say that I do know there are some who are here this morning who were here 14 years ago in this venue. We relocated to other venues. Whether by fate or otherwise, we are back here in the Adventist Church in Currep, at the corner of Havelock and Broome Streets. And the gentleman who gave the homily that day centered it around this text. I did not review his notes. Those were not the days of the recordings of sermons, so I did not listen to the sermon again. But it has been indelibly etched on my mind. The person who delivered that homily 62 years ago, and it's as fresh in my mind as yesterday, was Dr. George Carlington Simmons. And the pertinent question, what went she out to see? And if I do yield to the temptation, I would ask what all you come here for. I'd just like to announce the arrival of Minister Gasby Dolly. The acting president of the university, Dr. Hilary Bowman, will now give remarks.
Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Nyan Gasby Dolly, Minister of Community Development, Culture and Arts, and look forward to its continued expansion. Allow me to admit that the collection has outgrown its present location, and USC's leadership will continue aggressively to seek to facilitate additional space to house the over 13,000 volumes for what we anticipate will be the George Carlington Simmons Library. Over the years, the series of lectures have undoubtedly impacted positively on all invitees and the academic community as a whole. And I'm sure that today would be no exception as Dr. Susan Wolfe makes a presentation on the topic, Meaningful Lessons.
Respective professions. They have distinguished themselves nationally and internationally. The first who will speak will be His Excellency Dr. John L. Estrada, U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I will not yield to the temptation of reading the bios of both men. Our purpose here is to hear Dr. Susan Wolfe. impressive reading though it is. The US Senate conferred John L. Estrada as Ambassador to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on February 12, 2016. He was sworn in as Ambassador on March 17, 2016. Prior to his confirmation, Ambassador Estrada was Senior Manager. Dr. Estrada's remarks will be remarks by Dr. Ramesh Diosaran, scholar in the fields of sociology, social psychology, and criminology. After teaching at the University of the West Indies for 25 years, he was appointed Emeritus Professor. In addition to holding several university administrative posts, he taught and researched in the fields to which I just made reference. In addition to that, Dr. Diosaran has lectured at universities across the globe: North America, India, Europe, you name it, he has done it. And those of us who reside in Trinidad are aware of the fact that he has also served as an independent senator for about 50 years in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago,
and former capacity as a 15th Sergeant Major of the United States Marine Corps. I'm often invited to speak or be a guest at many, many events. Unfortunately, there's only one of me to go around, limiting which I can attend. But whenever the subject is about education and empowerment of youth, I do everything I can to clear my calendar, so I'm present for that. Education and empowerment are subjects that are very close to my heart, and I sincerely appreciate your invitation for me to address you this morning. I was very happy to visit with the University of the Southern Caribbean this summer, and I walked away very impressed with the educational programs and all of the university personnel I came in contact with. All of you here, I'm certain, understand the history of an organization that is older than the United States itself. November 10th of this year, the United States Marine Corps will be 241 years old. The United States of America just celebrated in July its 240th birthday. Upon retirement from the Marine Corps, I continued public service, as was mentioned, on various committees. And I will not name them all, but one of them I'm extremely proud of, more than the rest of them. I was very honored to serve on all of them, but the Defense Advisory Committee for Women in the Services. This committee advises the United States Secretary of Defense on issues affecting women in the United States Armed Forces. And I was most proud of that work, the 4 years that I did on that committee compared to any other committee that I sat on. And for about 3 of those 4 years, I was the only male on that committee that made some radical. I refused to let my circumstances or other people's perception define who I was at that time or who I was going to be in the future. I made that call. I decided early on in life I was going to be the one that was going to define who I was going to be as I grew up. Education is a key factor to being successful. Education is a path towards empowerment and self-improvement. Education builds character, and character builds leadership. Leadership isn't just about that one person at the top. It can be anyone throughout any organization. The Marine Corps, you will always hear me quote the Marine Corps up until the day that I leave this earth, because that's where I spent 34 years of my life, my adult life. The Marine Corps puts more emphasis on leadership than any other organization in the world. Emphasizes building bridges, not building walls. Every year, my embassy, along with the Canadian High Commission, organizes a college fair. This year, the college fair will be held on November 5th and 6th at the Hyatt Regency in Port of Spain. And I am proud to acknowledge that the University of the Southern Caribbean has participated in the opportunity aware of educational opportunities available to them. In addition to outreach of students at the fair, important relations formed people and educational institutions here and in the United States. I know there are United States in this audience.
The eminent lecture by Professor Wolf. Over the years, and it is quite noticeable more recently, whilst we rush to make a living, we seem to have forgotten the gentler side of human existence. We forget the virtue of kindness to others, respect to others, professional integrity, and also gratitude. These are the elements that create humanity, not the other things for which we rush towards. So it is in that light I am pleased in joining the celebration for Professor Simmons, and also to indicate that what he has done and what Professor Wolf will be saying are so directly connected to the mission of this university.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Master on behalf of my wife and myself to corroborate your brilliant remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to be alive this morning and to address you, though not in the flesh, but certainly in the spirit. Having 1 month ago celebrated my 95th birthday and of the ancient Greek dictum of the universal mortality of mankind, I was laid low. I humbly
Practical reason, however, seem to me to leave out many of the motives and reasons that shape our lives. Moreover, the reasons they leave out are neither peripheral nor eccentric. To the contrary, they are the reasons and motives that engage us in the activities that make life worth living. They are the ones that give us reasons to go on. My aim today is to bring out the distinctive character of these sorts of reasons and the special role they have to play in the quality of our lives. Specifically, I shall suggest that our susceptibility to these sorts of reasons is connected to the possibility that we live meaningful lives, understanding meaningfulness as an attribute that is not reducible nor subsumable under either happiness, as it's ordinarily understood, or morality. I shall be mainly concerned to explain the feature I call meaningfulness in life and to present it in such a way as to make it intelligible. As the dualist model of practical reason leaves out what we might call these reasons of love, So it seems to me also to leave out many of the reasons that move us to pursue non-personal interests about which we are especially passionate. Writing philosophy, practicing the cello, keeping one's garden free of weeds may demand more of one's time and attention than would be optimal from the point of view of one's own well-being. Yet in these cases, even more than in the cases involving loved ones, it's obvious that no impersonal perspective requires us to go on. Just as in the case of acting for a loved one, it's the good of that other person that provides us with a reason to act. What draws us on in these non-personal pursuits is a perceived or imagined value that lies outside oneself. I agonize over the article I'm trying to write because I want to get it right. That is, because I want the argument to be sound, the view to be correct. Not all actions that are motivated and guided by reasons of love are justified, however. Not all reasons of love are good reasons. For one thing, your love for something or someone is no guarantee that you know what is actually good for it. So although you may try to advance the interest of the object of your love, your action may not actually be in its interest. You might spoil your child, overwater your plants, cramp your philosophical style. More interestingly, love can be misplaced or misguided. The energy and attention that you give to an object may be disproportionate to what that object merits. A wonderful woman might give up her career, her home, and her friendships to follow and serve a man the rest of us see clearly does not deserve her. An impressionable teenager might join a cult with which he has become enamored, thereby giving up his love is at least partly subjective, involving attitudes and feelings. In insisting that the requisite object must be worthy of love, however, this conception of meaning invokes an objective standard. Not any object will do, nor is it guaranteed that the subject's own assessment of worthiness is privileged. One might paraphrase this by saying that, according to my conception, meaning arises when subjective attraction meets objective attractiveness, and one is able to do something good or positive about it. Essentially, the idea is that a person's life can be meaningful only if she cares fairly deeply about some things, only if she is gripped, excited, interested, engaged, or as I earlier put it, if she loves something, as opposed to being bored or alienated from most or all of what she does. Even a person who is so engaged, however, often said that in order to live a truly satisfying life, one must be able to be a part of something larger than oneself. The first view, I shall suggest, may be understood as a way of advocating something similar to the subjective element contained in my proposed analysis of meaningfulness, while the second view, suitably interpreted, urges us to satisfy the objective condition. Each of these more popular views is sometimes couched in the vocabulary of meaning, and in each case there is a basis for that choice in our ordinary uses of the term. When thinking about one's own life, for example, a person's worry or complaint that his life lacks meaning is apt to be an expression of dissatisfaction with the subjective quality of his life. Some subjective good is felt to be missing. One's life feels empty. One longs for something which will remedy this gap and make one feel fulfilled. On the other hand, one feelings of boredom and alienation. And although feelings of fulfillment are unquestionably good feelings, there are many other good feelings that have nothing to do with fulfillment. Riding a roller coaster, meeting a movie star, eating a hot fudge sundae, finding a great dress on sale, can all give one pleasure, even intense pleasure. They are unlikely to contribute to a sense of fulfillment, however, and it would not be difficult to imagine a person who has an abundance of opportunities for this sort of pleasure still finding something lacking in her life. Further, someone whose life is fulfilling has no guarantee of being happy in the conventional sense of the term. Many of the things that grip or engage us make us vulnerable to pain, disappointment, and stress. The fact that most of us would willingly put up with a great deal of stress, anxiety, and vulnerability to pain in order to pursue their that give rise to that fulfillment, however, may make us wonder whether we can really accept that view. Imagine, in particular, a person whose life is dominated by activities that most of us would be tempted to call worthless, but which nonetheless give fulfillment to the person whose life it is. I earlier mentioned